Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you're listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by littleshaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. Today I wanted to talk to you about how to accept that it's not possible to help the narcissist in your life. This comes up continuously, so I thought we could address it on the show today. People always ask if they can help the narcissistic person in their lives. Narcissistic people can come across as very vulnerable and needy. Even those who are aggressive, angry, and unpleasant often still come across as lost little children to some of their loved ones. One way to explain this phenomenon would be to say that empaths see people the way God sees people. That is to say, empaths see behind the facades and the flaws to who a person really is. It's very difficult and even hurtful to watch someone make a mess out of their lives, sabotage themselves, or push all their loved ones away. It becomes even more difficult when you can see the solution to the problem but cannot get the person to understand or believe you. When you add to that the sad fact that you will likely be abused and mistreated simply for trying to help, it's easy to see why relationships of any kind with pathologically narcissistic people have the reputation that they have. People are often motivated to help by the fact that the solution seems so obvious to them, and there are times when the narcissistic person becomes vulnerable and seems to listen and understand. However, it doesn't last. Soon the narcissistic person regains some of their emotional footing, and the denial, projection, and deflection are back in place as strong as ever. This is very frustrating for people, if for no other reason than that they are left with the constant feeling that their time was wasted. They often realize that any ground they believe they've gained in the battle to, quote, save the narcissist or the relationship has been lost, and that their efforts are not going to be rewarded in any way. Rather than accepting that they can't help, however, many people redouble their efforts and the entire relationship becomes about saving the narcissistic person from themselves. This type of entanglement becomes very toxic very quickly, with people ignoring their own needs or well-being in their attempt to salvage the relationship and the narcissist. The problem with this is that you can't save other people because you can't control other people. You can't make them listen, you can't make them understand, and you cannot make them care. You can explain and demonstrate and lecture and teach all day long, but if someone is not listening, if they don't understand, or if they don't care, there's nothing you can do. You can only give somebody the tools. You cannot make them use the tools or do the job for them. They have to do it themselves. And for narcissistic people, the job they're required to do would require them to face some really unpleasant things they've spent their entire lives trying to avoid and deny. This is not something they want to do at all, ever. It's difficult, it's painful, and it's exactly what their dysfunction has evolved to prevent. Narcissism is, at its core, a network of defense mechanism. Projection, blame shifting, denial, reframing events, the false self, manipulation, attacking other people, being controlling. These are all defense mechanisms designed to keep the pathologically narcissistic person from having to face things that are painful or difficult about themselves. This usually has to do with delusional negative beliefs they have about themselves, often due to abusive or neglectful experiences they had when they were children. These things were too difficult for the young person to understand or resolve in their minds, and they've generally not been processed emotionally by the narcissist thus far, so they've been denied and avoided for so long that they've been built up to monstrous proportions, and they're now too hard to deal with. Narcissists will generally do just about anything to avoid having to face these things, and anything that reminds them, even momentarily, of any of these things will be reacted to with rage. This hidden pain is, of course, often very obvious to those around them, and many well-meaning people will attempt to help the narcissist with their repressed pain. The problem is, they don't want help. Some of them will talk all day long about how much of a victim they are, and you might even hear them say they hate themselves, but if you attempt to suggest that they might not need these defense mechanisms, or that they should take responsibility for their behavior because that can empower them, or that their survival at all costs mindset is outdated since they're not actually in that childhood situation anymore, there's probably going to be a problem. The narcissist has worked very hard to create an existence where they can survive, and they are not going to let anyone ruin that. It works for them, and that's all they care about. If you really loved them, you'd accept the abuse they give out without question and stop trying to make them into somebody that they're not. This is how they see it. You can burn yourself out very quickly trying to help a pathologically narcissistic person. It's exhausting and it's almost always pointless. They don't want help. They want to be enabled, and if you're not going to do that, you're going to be met with resistance. To the narcissistic person, the only way they can be helped is to be given what they want, when they want it, and never be asked for anything. Being asked to give is threatening and even insulting to narcissistic people a lot of the time. They feel like they've done enough, and they don't really think it's fair that you're asking them for something when they have things they need to do for themselves. As far as they're concerned, you're the narcissist because you're refusing to focus exclusively on their needs. If you really loved them, you would. The pathologically narcissistic person's idea of love is completely and totally one-sided. All the giving is the other person's responsibility. If you can truly understand this, you'll be able to understand why trying to help them is futile. They don't want help, and they don't see why they need to change. You're the one who's doing it wrong. You're the selfish one. You're the one with the problem. It's true that inside this person you may very well see a lost or vulnerable child who needs love and guidance, but that child is not reachable. Not by you, probably not even by the narcissist. That child has been denied so long that they're a ghost of what they ever could have been. It's a shame, but one of the biggest lessons you can learn from narcissists is that there are times when you just can't help. You have to figure out how to accept that and move on. Not doing so only frustrates everybody involved. Just because you see a problem doesn't mean it's your responsibility to fix it. Sometimes it's not your problem. Everyone is on their own journey. You can recognize something without being required to do anything. You have to learn sometimes. You have to observe without acting, because sometimes there's nothing you can do. If a person does not want to help themselves, there's nothing anybody can do. Again, you cannot control other people. You cannot make them listen, you cannot make them understand, and you cannot make them care. This is a hard lesson, but it's necessary for everybody to learn. Otherwise, you could spend your entire life pouring effort into someone who cannot benefit from it, when there are others you could help who are ready. If your purpose in life is to help, don't waste time on someone who isn't ready. Narcissistic people are not ready, and they may never be. As much as you would like to, there's nothing you can do about that. Remember that, yes, empaths may see narcissists as God sees them, but you're not God. God can heal them. You can't. Hope this clears a few things up for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, and suggestions, so please keep those coming. I take appointments online and over the phone Monday through Friday, so if you'd like to speak with me one-on-one, you can go to littleshaman.org and click the Book an Appointment tab to go ahead and do that. Or you can use the link that's available in the information section of this video. You've been listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by littleshaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. May the Great Spirit bless you and have a wonderful day.